Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Goodman. I'm the Director of the China Studies Centre here at the University of Sydney. And before we begin, may I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which the university is based, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay homage to their elders and traditions, past, present, and emerging. And in the process, may I also acknowledge the same for the land on which all of you are, wherever you happen to be. Today we are we're very pleased to welcome Marina Jang from University of Technology, Sydney, just across the road, who's going to speak about a book that she and her two colleagues, Mark Dodson and David Gann, have recently produced on Demystifying China's innovation machine. I particularly like the subtitle, Chaotic Order, because in all my years living in China, I've always joked about chaotic order being the hallmark of Chinese practice for most things. So I'm looking forward to how this plays out in technological innovation. Marina's going to speak for about half an hour, maybe a bit longer, and she and her collaborators will answer questions and make comments after she's given a presentation. Can I ask if you would like to raise comments or raise questions? You use the question and answer facility in the bottom row of the Zoom software. So without further ado, over to Marina Jang.
Thank you, David, for the introduction. Thank you, David again, Professor David Gann, to join us. I know it's very early in the UK, and we're still waiting for Mark. Well, I actually prepared a very short PowerPoint slides, mainly to avoid being me occupying the screen all the time. So let me just get the things on the top. Okay, China's extraordinary economic growth in the past 40 years, especially in the past 20 years, can be largely attributed to innovation-driven growth. In this book, we are really not trying to promote China's innovation achievements in any way. We try to open a black box in which we try to identify how China has built its innovation capabilities in a very short space time, and based on which to catch up, at least in market share in some of the major technological areas. So we use the metaphor, China's innovation machine, in the title. The reason is, well, we don't think China's innovation is just a one-time, how to say, you can use a snapshot to describe it. Rather, we think China's innovation is an open and is an evolutionary ecosystem. So it has open boundaries, and in which there are many elements, including entrepreneurs, enterprises, research institutions, innovators, and so on. They interdependent and they interact to create value for a larger market. So that's basically the idea behind this title. As you perhaps all know, China is facing an increasingly hostile external environment, and also very challenging domestic market with the COVID policy, you perhaps all know, and so this year has turned out to be really challenging. So our question is, can China's innovation machine provide a solution to face the challenge for today and to sustain its future growth? So let me just show you a few things I prepared for this webinar. And on this chart, you can see this is the GDP growth in the first 6 months of this year. And China's growth rate was only 2.5%. And even, we estimate the annual growth rate reaching 4% or even 5%. That would be the lowest one since the early 90s. So this will be a very huge challenge for the country. And especially, as we know, growth is almost an engine for the legitimacy of the governance. So, so when you look at this, you feel, wow, this is really not a very bright picture. So I also look at some of the trading data. And as you can see, on the left-hand side, I prepared this table and I put the growth rate of the countries with major trading partners of China. And, excuse me, as you can see, China's exports to those countries actually are not declining. But the imports from those countries, apart from the US, Korea, and Russia, actually all declining. So what these pictures are telling us? What these pictures actually telling us, well, as we know, China's exports to its trading partners largely manufactured goods. But China imports critical technologies from Korea, semiconductor chips, the US, and energy from Russia and Australia. So this picture actually on the left-hand side tells us China's manufacturing is carrying on despite all the pessimistic forecasts of the country. And on the right-hand side, this is just a chart of an index called PMI, so a Purchasing Managers Index. So as you can see, apart from only I think one quarter in 2020, that's when China just started to deal with the outbreak of COVID. So this index has maintained a very healthy level. It's close to 50. So that is an indicator of growth and even expansion in manufacturing. So after looking at two different pictures, well, I just wonder, so whether China's innovation machine has some hidden features that is beyond our very most times very superficial understanding from the public. So, as I said, I'm not going to talk about China's innovation achievements. For example, in the China landing a vehicle on the dark side of the moon, or its very impressive high-speed train networks, or extensive use applications of digital technologies. So as I said, I'm going to clear some, demystify some myths of China's innovation machine. So first myth I want to tell you is through our extensive research, well, I can tell you one thing. If we use this metaphor, we mean that China's innovation machine is an evolutionary, is a dynamic open boundary ecosystem. So in that sense, no central planning power, no master plan by anybody can create this machine. So this machine, in a way, is interaction of multiple players, including policymakers, but largely driven by bottom-up entrepreneurship. So I use this, we create this sort of like a machine type of diagram to illustrate how China's innovation machine is working. So largely, what we want to say is multiple elements, innovators, enterprises, entrepreneurs, and even researchers, and even policymakers, they input their ideas, and through the selection of the market, and their ideas actually will be amplified and diffused to a larger market, including the global market. And value is co-created in this system. This is one layer of the explanation of this innovation machine. And beneath that is well, any machine needs power and oil to reach a certain, to reach an optimal level of operations. But machines can slow down without maintenance, and machines can suddenly stop quickly, and especially and external shocks. So is China's innovation machine can sustain any of the external shocks the country is facing right now? So and before I explain how the innovation machine is working, I just quickly draw your attention to the progress of China's innovation performance globally. And there are multiple rankings of global of innovation performance globally. And we chose Global Innovation Index, GII, for two reasons. First, it has this consistent measurements over time. So therefore, you can develop a progressive picture of the progress of a certain country. As you can see, China made very impressive progress in the last 10 years, from 34 in overall ranking to 11 this year. So just recently published, I think a week ago. So China is also making progress on both innovation inputs and outputs. Innovation input measures a country's institutional business environment, its R&D, contribution, research, educations, and so on. But its output measures knowledge impact, innovation diffusion, and creative applications of advanced technology, and so on. As you can see, China is making progress rapidly on all those fronts. So behind China's progress in innovation performance actually is the country's R&D expenditures. On the left-hand side, you can see, well, I listed some countries as benchmarks. So the first one on the left-hand side of the top one is China's. And this comparison country by countries probably cannot tell you a lot of a big picture. On the right-hand side, I put the contribution made by those benchmark countries together. As you can see, China contributed 23% to the global R&D expenditures last year, and it's more than the combined EU 27 countries, and it's just behind the US, which is contributing 27%. So, but I will not explain to you the structure of China's R&D expenditure and who's funding which activities and so on, but just let me wrap up. Well, China's R&D is largely skewed on developments or on application research. Rather, China's investment R&D expenditure on basic research is really very small. It's about is really about only 4%. Is about 6%. So and worse than these numbers indicated. And if you look at the structures and funding structures of the R&D, most basic research actually are done by research institutes, higher education. That means enterprises are doing very little on basic research. So this leaves China in a very, very vulnerable position in terms of technology sanctions as China is facing right now. So, for example, as we know, semiconductor industry and biopharmaceutical industries are the largest, are the industries with the highest R&D expenditures. The reason is because those two industries are not only very complex in their design, in their research, and so on in the product development, and it's very how to say, it takes a long time accumulation of knowledge to transform money into knowledge and knowledge into money. So transforming money into knowledge, that's research, and transforming knowledge into money, that's innovation. So China, that explains why China has quite impressive performance in academic publications measured by, for example, a natural index, but still facing bottlenecks in critical technologies. And as shown in the lack of high-end chips and also mRNA vaccines to deal with the COVID. So how can I? Oh, why is it not looking? Okay, so now I tend to how China, where China's innovation is making the huge contribution. So I will talk about two areas. One is in the manufacturing, and one is in the digital economy. So global value chain in manufacturing, well, can be shown in this smiley curve, which is quite ironic, a smiley curve. So based on this curve, and you can see countries with different competitive and comparative advantages are distributed along, their activities are distributed along this curve. So for example, higher end, at the left-hand side, high ends, intangible activities, R&D, IP, design, branding, and so on. They're making more money. And on the right-hand side, intangible activities, including marketing, branding, and so on, they're also making a lot of money. As you can see, the bottom is manufacturing. So traditionally, when China joined the globalization, which is again a process of evolution, no central planning was behind the emergence of globalization in the past 30 years. Basically, Western global multinational firms, well, they realized the Western society was building an innovation economy. So they outsourced the manufacturing jobs to lower income countries such as China. And China at the time was undergoing urbanization and large scale transformation of state-owned enterprises. So then China started to build massive manufacturing capacities supported by supply chains. But in recent years, you can see China's manufacturing, as I marked in those yellow arrows, is expanding both upward and outward. What does that mean? Well, that means this China is contributing to the manufacturing, not just simply assembling their products. China is making the progress by innovating in production processes and business models. So what does that mean? Well, that means China's business model innovation is not just about novelty or efficiency, it's about effectiveness. So the machine produces the most effective solutions to the users at a certain time. And that's on the left-hand side. And on this right-hand side, I put, well, manufacturing clusters and the supply chains. So what does that mean? Well, this means in economy, we often think, well, if you have resilience, that means you need to have redundancy. That means your efficiency is very low. But in this system, China is managing these massive supply chains with both efficiency and resilience. The reason is because every task is segregated into very small components and divided into very wide network of players. But together, based on standards and interfaces and the modules, they came quickly to produce any products. So, China's the first shipment of British flags, national flags, was on the way only 90 hours after the Queen Elizabeth II passed. So that indicated how quickly, how agile, how resilient this system is in terms of manufacturing. So that is the first part of innovation we identified in China's innovation machine. So that is perhaps explains why, despite economic growth is slowing down, but the manufacturing is still expanding, is still exporting. So And this is just from the again from a global innovation index. So I got the table, and you can see China. China has 6 industrial clusters, together with the US, which has 7. And among the top 100, both China and the US actually have 21 such clusters. So as you can see, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Guangzhou, that's the top one in China, and where several industrials actually are clustered there. Electrics and electronics, as we know, pharmaceuticals, and what else? Telecommunications, and so on. And Beijing is a center for IT and self-driving technologies, AI software, and so on. And then next one is Shanghai, Suzhou. That's 2 of the largest biopharmaceutical clusters in China. One is focusing with one is about big companies. Suzhou is more about small firms. And Nanjing is a center for manufacturing, smart manufacturing applications of AI. Hangzhou is e-commerce, fintech, and so on. Wuhan, as we know, is the center of automobile. So when the COVID hit Wuhan first, and the whole supply chain of automobile was disrupted. So technology and entrepreneurship, and behind China's innovation is entrepreneurs who really want to have a better life, better than their fathers, better than their grandfathers. So that's the driving force of economic growth in China. So, and technology entrepreneurship once was considered not a desired career choice. I mean, compared to being a public servant or academics. But in the past 10 years, well, maybe a little bit longer, technology entrepreneurship has become a choice of young people. And their dreams, their aspirations are supported by policy, by abundance of venture capital investment, and even the reforms of the capital market in China. So China has witnessed a growth of, many successful top tech entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, well, this is again, I will explain this in China's institutional logics, that some of those technology entrepreneurs are under scrutiny in China. So, which I hope will not be long lasting, because that is sending a negative signal to the younger generation. And especially when the country is facing economic downturn, people are looking for certainty. Being an entrepreneur is nothing but certain. So this is the driving force, as we concluded in the book, of China's innovation machine. Another area I want to talk about in terms of how China is innovating is China's very impressive digital economy. So we identify the differences in China in terms of the digital economy compared to the Western models, is the survival of the most connected. And you can see that China's digital ecosystem has been dominated by several very large super platform firms, you name it, Alibaba, Tencent, now ByteDance, and so on. So China's digital economy really started in early 20s, trying to try to build a society of being digital. So digitize content into a digital format. Now, China's digital economy is really about being connected. And if you are connected, if you are an entrepreneur and your product is connected in any of those large platforms, well, you have the chance to reach a lot of customers, and you will make a success. So, and overall, and this super digital ecosystem is transforming from each platform controls its platforms to more and more they start to share the controls with a multitude of stakeholders. And in this digital ecosystem, central power is giving way to distributed power. And China is promoting this concept of, well, if you want to be digital, you want to be connected, you have to change your mentality. You can't just use your existing business of whatever education, health, or entertainment plus internet. You need to transform your mentality to a way that internet is the foundation for your business. So internet plus X. Now this mantra is moving to intelligence plus X. So and because of cross-investment arrangements, those super platforms actually they're connecting with one another. So therefore, there emerges a model that is called platform of platforms. So you create a platform. Actually, your platform is just for other platforms to be connected. And for this reason, and you can see, I'll tell you just a very fundamental number. I mean, in 2008, China's e-commerce was less than 1% in the world. And in 2018, it was 40%, more than several leading industrial countries combined. So this is another area where China's innovation is showing its power. So it's building a super network. And of course, this effort has been supported by the country's very impressive digital infrastructure and networks, logistic networks, not just communication networks, logistic networks. So through these networks and even the farmers, they can sell their fresh products to the end users directly. And I just can't see this in any Western countries yet. I won't talk a lot about the cultural influences on innovation, but given innovation is activities and for people, so the country's history, institutions, political regimes, all those things will have a very strong influence on innovation. And so is in China. So China's cultural influence is actually quite strong. For example, respect for higher authority and need for building harmony. And you don't openly challenge your authority and so on. So those issues, cultural traits, could have a problem for innovation. But good thing is, well, younger generation growing up in the digital age, they are less influenced by such traditional cultural traits. Unfortunately, well, given the very, very rapid growth in the digital economy and the digital sphere and a lot of surveillance at the moment. So I hope we will not go back and to build a system that is isolated from the West, and that will also segregate different generations of consumers in China. So next I'm going to talk about is institutional logics in China. When we talk about China, and the Western is often, I try not to use the word criticizing, doesn't agree with China, is, well, China's economy isn't really a market economy. In a sense, it is not. The reason is, as we know, China's economy, China's economic development is actually following multiple institutional logics. So I name two. So the first is a central planning mentality. So central planning logic, and the policies are still playing critical roles in China's economic development. And the second one, that is market-led logic, which is actually very, very important and supported by many economists in the country. the market-led logic is still so critical for China's development. So in our study, we identified that, well, actually, despite a different from the common perceptions of China's institutional logic, that is, well, everything is from central planning. We find several things that is actually quite interesting. So which is also related to the cultural influence. So for example, Chinese has very high level of tolerance of uncertainties and ambiguities. So if you look at the policy papers, you can see this trend. So often the language used in any policies is very ambiguous because the government leaves a lot of room for changes, for improvements later. So we identify this very strong feature in the institutional logic, that is, the government policy actually is very pragmatic, and it adapts to the changes of the market. So in the early days of any emerging technology, the policy actually can be really relaxed because nobody knows what's going to happen. Innovation is not a central planning activity. So when the market develops, when some concepts or business models have been proven successful, and the government policy will intervene, either to support or to control. Well, this is a kind of a blurry area that really challenging for the economic growth. So I got not long times. So the bottlenecks. I mean, China's innovation machine, if I may summarize, is huge. But is it very strong? Well, it is strong in some areas, but not all. The reason is because the innovation machine is still facing some serious bottlenecks, the chokers, so to speak, of critical technologies. You can name it. I mean, I was looking at the C919, so the aircraft, and you can see that still 40% of the supplies actually are from imported technologies. I mean, the country is making some new arrangements to have joint ventures and factories established in China, but nevertheless, this is potentially a bottleneck. And the chips is again, and we can see the the U.S. is sanctioning technology supplies of high-end chips to Chinese firms, and potentially that can cripple the development of AI applications and self-driving. So this is really I mean a shortcoming in China's innovation machine. So let's talk about technology decoupling, and it is happening. That's as simple as it's as we can witness in the newspapers every day, and it actually started before the COVID, before the Russian-Ukraine war, and the reason is when China was admitted to the global value chain, China had very little technological accumulation. China was not enough to challenge anybody's power. And when China developed, caught up with the forerunners, the assumption was, well, when China developed economically, and the country perhaps would change politically. But that would never happen in China. Well, you can't say never. But when China is accumulating enough money, enough technological power, and this so-called difference in political regimes and in ideology becomes so obvious. So that's why, and we're facing this very serious, very serious consequences of technological decoupling. But decoupling, well, will damage China's innovation and will damage China's economic development. But it's also detrimental to the US, to the technology providers. The reason is the whole world, for the whole economy is interconnected system. And China is providing not just manufacturing power. When China is moving from physical world to the cyberspace, China is contributing the largest amount of data humans have ever seen. And all those data, we say data is new energy, is creating more data. And this to how to use the data, how to set up new global order to govern the data requires collaboration between China and the West. So I hope we will end up having two tracks of technologies. Well, you know, we probably can't use the same mobile phones, so same operating systems with consumers in China. So as you can see from this page, for the normal notebooks and smartphones, China's production is not going down, but the servers is going down. So resilience and anti-fragility. Whether China's innovation machine has resilience. Resilience is a term used in biological ecosystems. Resilience means, well, a system can recover quickly and the external shocks. So we think China's innovation machine has this resilience, well, and certain conditions. But in the book, we also argued that China's innovation machine has certain features of anti-fragility. Anti-fragility is a term coined by Taleb, I can't remember the name. So anti-fragility is about a system that is, well, and the external and any external pressure, you will recover. You're recovering, not only you're recovering, you actually will grow stronger. So, and the pressure of technological decoupling, another possibility is, well, China might come back stronger because with the hostile environment, overseas Chinese, they might returning to Chinese enterprises, universities, and China will put more money, concentrated money, to support strategic technologies. So one possibility is China will become stronger, but for China to catch up on certain core technologies, that will still take a long way. So we use this chart to compare evolution in the biological ecosystem and innovation ecosystem. So we emphasize again, China's innovation machine is an open boundary ecosystem. So it provides the platform for multiple elements to contribute their ideas and selected by the market. Generally, the criterion more and more is if you are connected with more players, well, you are likely to be selected. And then your idea will be amplified and you can reach a much larger market. So that's basically the logic behind the China's innovation machine. And last, from chaos comes order. As I said, Chinese culture actually has very high tolerance of ambiguity and orderless state. So to play the game of innovation, often they don't follow any rule books. And chaos is just a state of emerging patterns. So Chinese people, they have this tolerance of status in between. So patterns from patterns, and they learn from chaos. And eventually, comes order, and the innovation machine is perhaps getting stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Very interesting. I would ask people to put their questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom machine. And also, there's somebody who's asking a lot of questions and making a lot of comments without always putting a subject in. So I would ask whoever that person is to put a subject in so I can ask the question. I think the first thing we need to clarify though, Marina, is your view of what innovation is, because I think I understand from what you've said that it's doing new things in China with markets and things like that. I remember in the 80s and 90s when I was wandering around China looking at new enterprises, entrepreneurs would talk about innovation, but they weren't actually talking about technological innovation. So I wonder if you would like to clarify your make a clearer meaning. I think you probably have done, but somebody's asked this as well. So maybe you could just clarify a little what you mean by innovation. It's not just coming up with new inventions, is it? New manufacturing inventions or any of that stuff.
You're absolutely right. Innovation is not just about invention. Actually, it's nothing to do with invention. Innovation is about you use new methods, you use new materials, you use new process to do things. So in that sense, it's not really just about technological innovation. And of course, more and more we focus on technological innovation. But in China, business model innovation, a very effective oriented method of creating value, delivering value to customers actually is more important. I think Mark wants to say something.
Yes, I think he does too. So please unmute yourself, Mark, and as a contributor, make a statement, please.
Well, thank you. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes, we can.
Greetings from a very grey southeast of England, very early in the morning. First of all, thank you, Marina, for that wonderful presentation. I think both David and I are very grateful to have you as a co-author. I think we should emphasize that this book is a culmination of many years of study and collaboration. Marina and I wrote a book together 15 years ago, and David and I have worked for over 30 years. And the book really pulls together individually and collectively a number of studies that we've undertaken into particular firms, particular sectors, particular clusters, and indeed the whole evolution of China's national innovation system over many years. And I think it's important that we bring that longer term perspective to bear, because obviously China's always changing quite rapidly, and it's difficult to predict exactly how things are going to change in the future. But one of the purposes of this book is to develop some robust insights which will continue to explain how China's innovation machine is formulated and how it contributes to the economy. Because everything changes so quickly, those findings do need to be robust. And I think Marina has very succinctly summarized the key aspects of that we've pulled out from all those studies, and will continue to exist in the future. I think issues such as the importance of capacity to evolve in business models, the way that the digital infrastructure has underpinned the growth of these incredible platform firms, the strength of manufacturing and how manufacturing has evolved from basically being a workshop to being a powerhouse of manufacturing innovation. I suspect, and of course, we do pay due attention to the continuing bottlenecks in the innovation system and how constraining they are, particularly in relation to the importance of more basic research and development. I suspect that the biggest challenge confronting China's innovation system, and in fact beyond the innovation system, is that one of the enduring features of China's evolution, remarkable evolution of its innovation performance, has been the policy pragmatism of the government. I remember having a conversation many years ago with senior policymakers in Beijing that said that we have to learn from everywhere. For example, when we're reforming our state-owned enterprises, we look to Korea and the chaebol and the way that they're structured. When it comes to being able to leverage our foreign direct investment, we're learning from Singapore. When we want to learn about the important roles of entrepreneurs and small firms, we look to Taiwan, and we look to Europe and US for lessons on culture. But as we put in the book, these multiple logics, the question is whether they are shifting from the market logic to the centrally controlled logic, and especially in regard to recent developments over entrepreneurship. So the question is whether that pragmatism will still exist. And indeed, as China moves into more leadership positions in many areas of innovation, whether that brings a level of complacency, indeed arrogance, related to issues such as standards which affect the dual development of innovation systems in the West and in China. So I think the book, to reiterate, the book tries to get some deeper processes, understand the deeper processes occurring, deeper trends occurring in China, and what's likely to continue. I think the biggest challenge is whether that policy pragmatism that has underpinned so much growth will continue in the future.